This is Danny Bobrow, President of AIM Dental Marketing, welcoming you to this installment of the Practice Perfection web-based education series. Today's presentation is entitled, The IRS Has Your Money. You Need Only Ask for It. 2 little-known but totally legal ways to receive up to $500,000 from Uncle Sam. Most dentists are unaware that they may legally receive large cash payments by completing a simple qualifying application. Kathy Devereaux has worked with dentists nationwide since the R&D and Employee Retention Credit rebate programs were codified into law in 2017. Since then, Kathy has helped dentists nationwide receive from $50,000 to $570,000 in cash from the federal government. Her work within and outside of dentistry will result in payouts of over $400 million in 2021 alone. Her emphasis on dentistry began when it became obvious dentists needed an advocate to show how their current hiring and training practices could be leveraged into cash payments from the federal government. Working with dentists in the IRS credits arena, Kathy has helped practices from coast to coast grow by providing them with unexpected but welcome working capital. As an attendee at today's event, you will learn the many myths surrounding the program concerning eligibility and qualification, the simple steps to apply for cash payments from the IRS, and how to repeat the process each and every year you are in practice. Today's webcast will run for around 1 hour. While attendees are in listen-only mode, we invite you at any time to submit your questions or comments using the question button on your screen. We will allow time following the presentation to get your questions answered. If we do not get to your question during the webcast, we'll see that it's answered shortly thereafter. Attendance at this presentation entitles you to receive 1 hour of continuing education credit with the compliments of Kathy Devereaux and AIM Dental Marketing. Shortly following the webcast, we will send you an email with instructions for receiving your CE, again, at no cost to you. Participants are cautioned about the dangers of incorporating techniques and procedures into their practice if the course has not provided them with adequate clinical experience to allow them to perform them competently. And now, it is my distinct pleasure to welcome to the Practice Perfection stage, Ms. Kathy Devereaux. Hello, Kathy.
Hello, Danny. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and good evening to everyone across the country that's been fortunate enough to attend this, because I think at the end you're going to be really thrilled that you did take the time out to listen to what we have to say tonight. What we're going to talk about and why let's look at it this way. Why are we here anyway? Here's the reason we're here. About 4 or 5 years ago, I guess it's almost been 6 now, I was approached about R&D credits. I had never heard of them. I'd started 3 companies in my life, never knew this was even an option. So this company told me about it, and I thought, you know what, this just sounds too good to be true. I mean, there's so many scams on the street today. You have to be so careful. And so I did my due diligence, got a hold of a friend that owned a small telecom company and did some real estate on the side, talked him into letting me run him through this program to see if it was legitimate and everything happened the way I was told it would happen. I was in a movie theater on a Saturday night in between movies and scanning through my phone. I had an email. I went out in the lobby, called this friend, and I said, Wes, are you sitting down? He goes, yeah, why? I said, you're getting back $46,000. And he said, are you kidding me? And I said, no. And since that day, everything has gone on exactly the way they told me it would and the way I anticipated. So I'm thrilled to death to open up this door for everyone here tonight. R&D tax credit is one of the things we're going to speak about tonight. R&D started in the late 80s in the Reagan administration. And the reason they started it was they wanted to stimulate the economy. So what they did is they put up certain parameters that they said to business people, hey, business people, if you fill these parameters, you tell us that you did this, and we agree with you, we in turn are going to turn around and send you credits in the form of a check with the idea that it will go towards your bottom line and you'll use that money to hire more employees, and those employees will go out into the marketplace, spend money, and pay more taxes, thus stimulating the economy. Now, that was the idea behind it, but there is no accountability as to what you do with this money. They're just happy to give it to you because what they want to do is encourage you to grow your business because, of course, as businesses grow, they pay more taxes. And that's the bottom line when it really comes to the government. The credit expired, as I've stated here, 8 times, and they extended it 15 different times from the time it originally started. The PATH Act, which is the Protecting Americans from Tax Act in 2015, made R&D tax credit permanent and expanded its provisions. In other words, they started out, was kind of as with any new program, it was a little iffy and it was a trial and error thing. And then they kind of honed it down to what was acceptable and they thought was a benefit to the taxpayer. It can be applied to any taxpayer that incurs expenses. They love acronyms, so everything is an acronym. And I've written in here so that you understand what a QRA is, and it's a qualified research activity. It has to be on the US soil, of course. And excuse me, when we say these things, expenses, I don't want you to think it's money that because I bought a big machine, I can write that off, or I bought a building, write that off. It's totally different. We'll get into that in just a minute. Second thing we're going to address is employee retention credits. This was implemented in 2020 by the Trump administration. And what they did was they set up things and said, if your gross income or revenue has been down 50% per quarter compared to what you were making in 2019, because the pandemic affected all of us, then you have a chance to apply and get monies back. The Biden administration reduced it in 2021 to 20% per quarter. And what that means is you can get as much as $7,000 per employee per quarter, up to $19,000. And I was just told today they've changed it a little because this was a new program and everybody was kind of working with it and finding out which way to go. So you may have, some of you may have already applied for this because there's a lot of companies that do this, your payroll company, maybe even your CPA. The thing you want to be sure is that you do it with a company that really knows what they're doing. I've had some comments from clients that said they have used some payroll companies, and I'll go nameless, obviously, that it's really got messed up and caused them a lot of headaches. Now, that's not to say that whoever you use wouldn't do a great job, but they came out today and said that you cannot apply any further for ERC for fourth quarter 2020. They are stopping it. Now, I don't mean stopping the whole program. I just mean we can't apply for the fourth quarter. We apply for first, second, and third, fourth for 2020, and then first, second, and third for 2021. And that's the way it is standing right now. And this is really, it's a really good deal and can really help you out. There's some misnomers with this.
Before you go on, Kathy, the last bullet point talked about PPP. Just can you clarify? It looks like this is separate and distinct from any PPP loan.
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me that, Danny. I'm sorry I missed that. Yeah, when this first came out, it was put out that if you got a PPP loan, you could not apply for ERC. They changed that. So if anyone's telling you can't or told you in the beginning, if you first heard about ERC early on and you kind of brushed it off because you thought, I can't do this, I got a PPP loan, don't do that. Talk to us or talk to your CPA or talk to your payroll company and look into this, because seriously, it's large money and you have it coming. So it's something you really want to check into.
That's good news. Cool.
Okay. So why are these two things offered? The ERC and the R&D. They wanted to, like I said earlier with the R&D, they wanted to do stimulus to the economy, which makes sense. Again, the more money you get, the more money you spend, and the more taxes you spend. They wanted to create jobs to help and keep them here on the American soil, which makes sense. And they wanted to encourage companies to grow with technology and innovation. And they wanted to promote entrepreneurship, which we all want. Research and development definitions are very broad and they scope about 800 plus pages. So to really understand it, you've got to work with a company that has specialists in this area. There's myths, a lot of myths out there about tax R&D and ERC. If you Google R&D, there's probably, I'd say maybe 3,800 different sites that'll come up that you can find out. And a lot of people don't think that dentists would qualify. They think it has to be all tech or a laboratory type situation. That's not true. So that's when they say R&D only for companies inventing something. And that's not the case. And we'll get into that in just a minute. Must have white culture labs and test tubes. And it makes you think that because when you hear research and development, that's where everybody's mind goes. And that's where it was for years. And I believe that's part of the reason a lot of companies are unaware of this opportunity for them. A lot of people I talked to, actually the very first dentist I ever talked to, he said, well, I couldn't apply for this. I don't do any research and development. I mean, my practice is pretty basic. And I said, no, we'll get into details. Yes, you would apply. So he'd missed out on it since 2016, unfortunately. Only for big companies. Now, they say big companies like an Amazon and Google, yeah, it's for them, but it's also for mid to small companies. Now, I have a client in downtown here. I'm in Brentwood, Tennessee, so in Nashville. There's a client downtown, does $47 million a year. To me, that is not a small company, but in the eyes of the government, it is. So these type of programs are available, and I do believe, my own personal opinion is that, yeah, they probably were put out there for the Amazons and Googles, but if they offer it to them, they have to offer it to everybody. It's just with Amazon and Google, they have the wherewithal to have departments that do nothing more than look for these type of programs. So that's why they are on top of it, and your small, mid-sized, $1 million companies are unaware of it. So it won't help me with my state taxes. This isn't true. Some states allow, well, you pay income tax. If you live in a state that pays state income tax, we'll look at that, because what they do is they allocate monies for that state, and some states just get allocated a certain amount. Once it's used up, they don't pay any more R&D. But we should always look at that. Won't help your bottom line? Well, I think it will. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I know Danny said the last one's like 575,000. Now I have someone that does something like me in a different part of the company, and they actually had a client that they got back over $1 million for them. So it's out there, and yes, that would impact anybody's bottom line, I'm sure. Too good to be true, probably snake oil. Yeah, that's what happens. It does sound too good to be true, and that's exactly why I did my due diligence when the company first approached me, because it did sound too good to be true. And usually when that is the case, it is a fraud. And you have to be careful today. There are a lot of scams on the streets. So you want to go with someone that has credibility, or someone you know that brings someone in and tells you they are credible. Don't just take the word of the person knocking on your door. It says, will it go away with tax reform? No, it will not. It was put into law. That's not going to happen. They may alter it to some ways. They may ask for more information, but we're on top of that. Our CPAs are bonded and do this as a specialty. They look anywhere from 400 to 700 different areas, and each state is different. And that's why you have to have a company that is a specialist in this area. And you also want a company, as we are, that's very conservative and colors far inside the lines, because to get you a few extra dollars, we don't think it's worth it to have it come back and seriously bite you with the IRS. We want to keep everything legitimate. We want to keep everything that's within the program parameters and do what's as legally obligated for the program. So why doesn't my CPA does this, right? And that's one of the things I say to everybody when I first talk to them. Say, hey, listen, don't get upset with your CPA if he hasn't heard about this or hasn't told you about this, because you're going to say, where the heck have you been for the last years? Why haven't you made me aware of this? Because this is a specialty. Remember, your CPAs are trained to get you money, to keep you from sending money into the IRS, right? We are here to get you money back. So the situations I run in with CPAs is either it's a CPA doesn't know anything about it, but they say, well, shoot, let's find out about it and see what they can do for you. Or I'll have a CPA that says, I know a little bit about this, but I've got some questions. At that point, I say, that's not a problem. Put in writing any questions you might have and send it to me, and I will get the answer from our CPA so that there's no misunderstanding. I don't want he said, she said. I want it in writing because we have to back up what we say. Or the third thing is a CPA that really has been maybe the client's CPA for years and years, and they're a little intimidated. They don't want their client to think they don't know everything and everything. And I have had this happen. I had a CPA tell a client that it was a scam. And I said, and if that's the case, seriously, there's not much I can do about that. I'm not going to sit there and tell a client his CPA should be doing more due diligence or giving us a chance or check this out a little more. And I always tell a client, if you're not comfortable with this, you shouldn't do this. I know it's legitimate. Go on the internet, it's legitimate. I have a short video from Senator Grassley talking about R&D credits. It's legitimate. It's all over the place. But at the end of the day, If this client or potential client is not comfortable, then I tell them to walk away from it. I wouldn't want them doing it. So what happens with CPAs, I work with a lot of them across the country, and I usually get them because they were the CPA of one of my clients. And the client has told the CPA about what I've done, and they've been so impressed that they've referred. Today, actually, it happened. One of the clients that I did up in New York was really happy. Their CPA, they were talking to him about it. CPA looked at everything, was so impressed that I got 5 referrals from them today that called. So CPAs are vital, and they do a great job, and I'd love to talk to any of them. I never hesitate to do that. I am not a CPA, so that's why I insist that if they have really questions I don't have an answer to, I will not blow smoke at them. I will get them the answer, and I'll just tell them, hey, I don't know the answer to this. Let me find out for you. I'm an old school, I guess, salesperson, as we say. My word is my bond. Probably not the smartest tack on the wall, but I'm the hardest worker, and my clients come first for me. I will do whatever it takes to keep my client. That I veer on the side of the client, what's best for them. There's 2 ways to apply for R&D, and the Amazons and Googles do this way, this contemporaneous method, and it requires perfect records because they know they're always going to get audited. It doesn't matter what they do, they are going to get audited. But they don't care because a few extra points for them are millions of dollars. Well, the government understood that small to mid-sized companies don't have perfect records. So they allowed us to do the alternative simplified credit method. You don't have to have perfect records. So what we do is we guarantee our numbers. If there's ever a question, we back up everything that we've done. If you ever get a letter from the IRS referring or asking questions about what we've sent in on your behalf, you just scan that right in and send it over to me, and I send CPAs and they take care of it. Your CPA,
so this alternative simplified method that you're referring to, Kathy, is this the application itself that is an alternative for smaller businesses?
Well, it's the application and then the paperwork that we need with the application. But with the application,
to support it.
Yes,
I see.
yes, has to be
the
supported.
records.
Yes, and the application, I don't just send that to you. I tell you, let's set up a time and date and let's get on the phone, and I'm going to walk you through this because it's the government and everything is generic, and there may be a question on there that you need to look at and say, as a dentist, and say, this doesn't apply to me. Well, yes, it probably does. I just have to explain what they're really asking for. So it's imperative we do that. It's a benefit to everybody.
I see.
Okay. So the R&D, and it said it's our specialized part of the $5 million word tax code. You can imagine what that's like to read through. So the most complicated system on earth is the US tax code. You know who said that? Albert Einstein. We all know he had a few brains he was working on. Even back then, he knew the tax code was horrendous, and it is. And that's why with a company, you have to have CPAs that really understand what they're doing. And again, with R&D, have a specialty, and also with ERC. Even though ERC is brand new, there are still boundaries that you have to stay within to apply. And we certainly do those. It wouldn't be smart for our clients. It wouldn't be smart for our reputation to do anything other than be legitimate with either of these products.
I don't know that this needs to be stated, Kathy, but I'll state it just for clarity reasons. You have CPAs with whom you work. You're happy to collaborate and work with anyone who decides to utilize you to help submit this application. And dentists are sensitive to the fact that, you know, when you refer to a specialist or a specialist refers to a generalist, well, usually it's the other way around, that the specialty work is done and then the patient, in the case of the dentist, is returned to them. So I know that that's the case with you too, but some people that may feel like they owe loyalty to their CPA, they should have no concerns about working with you with the idea that your CPA is going to try and turn them into their client, right?
Oh, no, absolutely. No. We would never do that, nor do we even want to. This is just the area that we navigate in as R&D and ERC. We don't want to file your taxes. We don't want to go after those type of refunds for you. We don't want anything to do with that. And the other thing that is, and I'm glad you brought that up, because your information is sensitive. It's proprietary, it's private, it's your personal information. I never see that. What I and we'll get to this in a minute, but what I need from you will be put into a Dropbox, and that is secure, and it goes directly to those bonded CPAs. We don't share it. We don't sell your information, none of those type of things. We couldn't stay in business if we did things like that. So I hope
Right.
that answered
Okay.
your question. Okay,
Absolutely. Thanks for clarifying.
sure. Now, with R&D and ERC, both of these programs are available to any type of business. So it can be any business that has paid in at least $30,000 in income tax cumulative over the last 3 years. And then we do it every year going forward with R&D. Now, like I said, ERC ends the end of this year as far as going into fourth quarter. Now, if you haven't done your ERC and middle of next year you go, geez, maybe I want to try that, we can go in and start the process for you then. We haven't been told that you have to have everything done by the end of this year. So don't think that's the situation. So, and the reason I got into working with dentists, as you can see on this list, there's all kinds, and this is only a small portion of the businesses that would qualify for this type of program. Keep in mind what this type of program is for. The only people that, to make it easier, the only companies that wouldn't qualify would be, say, I own a candy store, and all I do is order candy, it's shipped to me, and I turn around and sell it to you when you walk in the door. I don't do anything to change it. I don't get creative with it, none of that. Any type of business like that would not qualify when I haven't changed anything. But dentist, you guys do a lot of things. You do education, you do training, you go to training, you do trial and error, which the government loves. So say you have a numbing agent that you've used for years, but now the latest and greatest is ABC numbing agent, and you try it. You still don't like it. So what do you do to make it better? Anything that you try to make it better is that. Do you use social media? They want to know about that. Do you educate your employees? What do you do to keep educated? What is it about your practice that I'd want to come to you as opposed to John Brown's practice down the street? What makes you stand out? What are you doing to grow your practice? Those are all the things that go into this application. So that's why I really like working with dentists with this, because there's a variety of things that would apply, and most people or most dentists are unaware of these type of things. Here's some case studies, and you can see there's contractors, printing companies, real estate, but the big red one is dentists, and that's gone up since I've made this slide. We've gone up to 700,000 for a dentist. Now, I've gone also down. I had one that he was retiring, didn't have much going on, didn't care. We got him back about 25,000, but he was still thrilled to death. He just wanted to do 1 year, and that was fine with us because he had paid in enough to still qualify. So here's the other big news, which I should have mentioned earlier. For R&D, that money you get is not taxable. There is interest that they add to it. So when we tell you what you're going to get back, the number we guarantee, you'll get back more than what we tell you, because there's been interest accruing and the government pays you that. The interest part is the part you have to claim.
Yeah, I was kind of blown away when you said that in our run up to this talk, Kathy. In addition to the actual lump sum that you receive, the government calculates when you were eligible for it and pays you interest as though they were holding your money, just waiting for you to ask for it. Am I getting that correct?
Yes, and they won't tell us the formula they use, but what we've looked at, and it seems to be between 6 and 8%, which, you know, in today's market, you can't get that anywhere. So
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's fantastic. It really is. And that's why I get crazy when I want everybody to know about this and take advantage of it. You have nothing to lose by looking at it. And the process is simple. The way it works is, again, they love acronyms, that BQF. All that is an application. That's all that is. And it takes about a half an hour for us to go through it over the phone. So it's pretty simple. You submit the last 3 years. We can only go back 3 years on federal, your tax returns. If you're in a state, again, and some of this I'll repeat, if you're in a state that pays income tax, we will also take your last 4 years of income tax returns for those years. And it's your business and your personal. Again, I do not see that. It goes strictly into the Dropbox. It goes to the CPAs. The bonded CPA screens this request. So once we get the application done, the returns are put into the Dropbox. Okay, that goes in. in about 10 to 15 business days, depending on holidays now, because during holiday season, everything slows down, including us. I will get an email back and it will say, hey, Kathy, thank you for bringing us this client, but we've looked at everything and they just don't fit the parameters right now, but we can look again next year. Or they'll say, yes, we did the 10,000 foot look. We haven't done a deep dive yet. And here's a guesstimate of what we know they'll get at least this much of. And they're usually within $10,000 of the final numbers. With that email will come a contract, because we all know nothing's free. But in that contract, it will state that we don't sell your information, everything is secure, and we guarantee our numbers. Now, if you sign the contract and there's no commitment from you till this point, and we've agreed to do a free review for you to do this, to find out if there's even money there for you. If you sign that, you're agreeing to pay the company 33% of what you get back. You keep 66% of it. You don't pay anything yet. Once that contract is signed, I send it back into the CPAs. Now they do their deep dive for you, where they're looking at everything and they make sure everything's legitimate as far as what fits in the parameters. Another 10 to 15 business days, I will get back a final invoice. That invoice will be broken down by year, telling you exactly what you're going to get back by year. But again, as I stated earlier, the numbers we're going to show you, you're going to get back at least that much, but you will get back more because of the interest added. And that money will come to you directly. They come in check form, it goes directly to you. They don't all three come in one envelope. They come individually, and you can tell what you're getting. You'll get the check, and at the bottom in small print, it will tell you how much of that check is interest. And that's what you can show your CPA, so you know what you have to claim. And you let him do that part of it. That's his job, to take care of what you have to claim. On that invoice also, the company requires for you to pay half of that 33% upfront. They feel like we want to have everybody have a little bit of skin in the game. They used to not require that. They thought, well, we'll just not require anybody to pay us until they get their checks in, and they turned into a collection agency.
I was just going to say that. I can appreciate your
well, and I'm sure all these dentists get too. I mean,
your policy.
Like I came in and you did all my dental work, and I said, oh, hey, I'll pay you whenever. And that's really what happened. It's not good business.
And we were talking about this. I mean, I was referred to you by one of my health partners who utilized your service. That's how I got to know you. If people want to talk to people who've already worked with you, dentists or whoever, are you willing to provide contact information for them?
Yes, I will. Now, I'll tell you this. I don't give out anybody's information without checking with them first. So I don't blatantly have a set list of references and just send that out to everyone.
Sure, of course.
You tell me you want somebody, I call them and I get it in writing, tell them it's okay to share their information, because just like them, just like you, they're busy and they can't be taking 50 calls a day. But understandably, you want to talk to referral, absolutely. Because again,
sure,
you want to do your due diligence. I have no problem with that whatsoever. We are
Great.
going to do, oh, go ahead. We're going to do the
I was just acknowledging that that's important, and I appreciate that you agree to do that.
Oh, absolutely. The projection report is the analysis. They call it the CPR. What that is that after that last information is sent in for the guesstimate, I don't know why they still call it a guesstimate. You know, I'm pretty basic. I talk down to earth words. CPR, they had to explain to me what that was years ago, and I said, why don't you just call it a guesstimate? Everybody understands what that is. But it's nothing more than that paper saying how much they think you're going to get back. As I told you, you'll get an engagement letter, which is nothing more than saying, here's what you're going to get, here's what the company's going to do for you, and then the agreement. Now, until you sign the agreement, after you know what the guesstimate is, not the finals, but the guesstimate, there's no commitment from you whatsoever. So if you decide, if they come back and they say, oh, hey, Dr. Brown, you're going to get back, I don't know, say $50,000, and for whatever reason, you decide and say, nah, I don't want to do this. I just don't, I'm not comfortable with it. I just don't want to do it. You can totally walk away at no cost to you whatsoever. Now, once you sign the contract, they call it a consulting agreement, but it's a contract. You're agreeing to pay that money, which is the process which I told you about earlier.
And just to make sure I'm following the math right, if it was $50,000, the percentage is 33, and then you request half of that up front, so that would be 8250. Is that right?
That's correct. That's correct. And that's required once
Okay.
I send you the final invoice. And once I send you the final invoice, I'll send you a credit card form with it. And I've got some dentists that put it on 2 or 3 cards. I don't have any they don't have any problem with it. That's absolutely fine. You send that back to me, the credit card form, and then I'll ask you for an address, because what's going to happen next is, because the CPAs have finalized, because we've gotten the final invoice, they finalized doing all their due diligence, putting everything together and doing the amendments. You will get a FedExed overnight package. And I tell all my clients, do not open that till you call me and have me on the phone. And the reason I do that is, in that package, the final amendments are in there, and they're paper clipped to a self-addressed, self-stamped envelope. And human nature is that when we see something, and I'm as guilty of it as anybody, when you see something paper clipped, you take the paper clip off and you start looking through it. And we don't want you doing that, because if you get the wrong paper in the wrong envelope, then we've got a mess. So you call me at your convenience, and I take calls after hours and weekends, because I know your days are tight with patients, and sometimes it's hard for you to take time away from that. So I certainly understand that and respect your time. You call me, it takes me about 5 minutes to walk you through that. And when you get those packets and you open them with the paper clip to the envelope, there'll be little pink stubs sticking out from the side. And that's telling you where to date and sign everything. And we'll walk through that. You sign it, you take it off paperclip, you put it in that envelope, you seal the envelope, and we do that however many envelopes you've got, and then you take those to the post office and you mail it. During normal times, not COVID times, the IRS had 14 weeks to close a claim. Now, which is strange, in some instances that's still true, but moreover or not, it is not. They are running extremely behind. When they closed their office in March of 2020, they took every bit of paper that they got in and put it in a warehouse. And they didn't open it until they got back in August, and they didn't even go back full staff in August. When they got back, there were 5 million pieces of paper, and they normally get in 1 million pieces of paper a day. And this is what's crazy with R&D and ERC. We cannot do it electronically. We have to do it hard copy, which we don't understand, but we don't have to. That's the government regulations. So that has to be sent in. So now they're trying to dig themselves out from that mess from COVID. But it's COVID times, right? Everybody's inconvenienced. And that's why I tell my clients, listen, you've got this money coming. Don't think about it as you've got it going to have it tomorrow or in 16 weeks, because I won't get a loan because I'm going to have that coming or whatever. I want you to think about it. It's going to be a surprise when it comes in the mail. And also remember, the longer it takes, the better off you are, because they're paying that 6 to 8% until they send it out to you. You couldn't take that money and invest it in anything today and make that kind of return. So it's kind of a good news, bad news. Yeah, yeah. And it's a good news, bad news. It's a little, and I understand, when you know there's money coming, and I'm as human as the next person, I want it now, right? I mean, I had a client call me or email me yesterday and say, listen, I haven't gotten my checks yet. You need to get on the IRS. And I said, geez, I wish I could, but I really don't have that power. Maybe if you call President Biden, he might, but we don't have any control over this. It's the IRS. Calling them, bugging them, we're not going to be able to push them to do anything. But at the end, if it's been too long, I will get on the phone, or I'll have the office get on, and they can get an update as what the status is of your particular checks. And they can find that out. But we wouldn't even look, quite honestly, until about, especially with the mess we're in right now, probably till about 30 weeks out. So I want you to be prepared for that. So I don't want to set up any unexpected or expectations that are unrealistic. This is today's world, and it's what we have to deal with right now. And I told you this, they begin working on the amendment returns once we sign the contract. You only pay your half of your incentives. Now with this incentives thing, some of the questions are, what if I don't get back what you said I'm going to? I paid you this money. You told me I'm getting back 40 to 50,000. I only got back 25. If that's the case, when you get your checks in, you take a picture of it and you send it to me. And I want to do that for 2 reasons. One, I want to make sure you did get the amount we told you would. And the second one is I want to have it in your file so that if you didn't get, and I've never had this happen, but in today's world, you can't really use that word never anymore. If it would happen, we will adjust the invoice down to the amount that you received. We're never going to charge you for any amount of money that you never got. And let's say worst case scenario, this has never happened either, but again, anything can happen in today's world. For whatever reason, the IRS, we send your stuff in and they look at it and they say, what, are you crazy? This doesn't apply. It doesn't fit the parameters. We're closing this file. We're not paying anything. And they will send you a letter because they don't call. Anytime you do anything, they send you a letter. And you say, hey, what the heck? I paid you half of that 33% front. Now I'm getting nothing. Not a problem. You send me the letter. We refund the entire amount. We don't keep a percentage. We don't keep a carrying cost, nothing like that. You get your entire amount back. So this says no risk, no cost. It's your money and that you're entitled to it. And we are not going to charge you for anything you did not receive in your hands. This is my information to go over and contact me. And again, I take calls after hours and on weekends. I try to fit your schedule and respect that. The holidays are coming up, and I'll put this out there. And I said this earlier, everything slows down through the holidays, including our brain power. We kind of get off of it. I tell every client I talk to, listen to me. I'm going to be a pain in the neck to you. And I said, here's the reason I am. I know you've got 18 balls going in the air, and I'm only one of those, but you're my priority. And so if I don't hear from you in a week, I'm going to be sending you an email and say, hey, we didn't get this information. Hey, you didn't give me the answer to what the CPA needs. Because my goal and my responsibility in my mind is I've got to get this done so that we can get your paperwork in the mail to the IRS. So that process gets started and that money gets in the queue so that you start getting your checks. Because that's my job and you're my priority. And it's like I said, I'm old school. I live by my word. If I make a mistake, I will call and tell you because I don't have that good of a memory to lie.
And just to be clear, and you made it about as clear as could be, you're compensated based on results. There's no setup fee. The review you're offering is free. It's complimentary. You do the analysis, then you give them an expectation of what kind of check they can expect to receive, and then you request 1/2 of 1/3 of that amount. And if the unthinkable should happen where they get less than they were expected or they got nothing, then you refund in full whatever they paid you, correct?
That's absolutely correct. And because this, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dan.
I know it's correct because I talked to Wendy, who referred you to me, and but I just wanted to make sure that it was on the record, so to speak.
Sure. Yeah, the thing is too is for me personally and for the company, this is a referral business. Word of mouth spreads like wildfire, right? And if we do something that's not correct or we cause a real hassle for a client, that's going to go through again like wildfire. I don't want to do that because my referral business, this is what puts a roof over my head and food on my table. So that's why my clients are important to me because I appreciate them helping me do that. So, and
Sure.
I do have a referral program set up so that if you have someone I can help, whether in the dental industry or in other industries, I certainly appreciate that. And we can talk about that if you get to that point in the process. So I'd like to thank everybody. I didn't know if they had any questions you need me to answer that I didn't think about or didn't bring up.
Well, we've had a pretty engaged audience, and I just want to say before we get into the Q&A that usually our talks last considerably longer than this. If you take advantage of this opportunity and go through the application process, I think I can say this with considerable certainty that few of any of the presentations that I've hosted offers the potential for as much of a return with as little effort as this program, which is why I invited Kathy to join us today. And before we started talking, you had talked a little bit about, before you started talking, you and I had talked about what to do if the IRS were to send a letter in response to an ERC or R&D application, which would have questions. And that's the only way they would communicate. There's no phone calls, and they would send a letter and it wouldn't go to you, it would go to them. Could you elaborate on what that process would entail?
Sure. For any time period, but if from the time you send in those envelopes until the time you get your checks, if you get any letter from the IRS requesting things, and it happens, they'll say we need this form. All you have to do is take that, scan it in, and get it to me. Now, you need to do that right away because we have a 30-day window to respond to their request. If we do not respond in that 30 days, they'll close the file and we'll have to start all over again. And you know, if you get something in from the IRS, you'll know it because we all start shaking up when we see any envelope that has the IRS on it. It's just like driving and having a policeman pull up next to you. You're immediately guilty even though you haven't done anything. So you want to get that over to us, we'll take care of it. Mostly it is because they have lost something. Now they'll never say that, and we can prove we've sent it, but we've learned over years of experience, there's no sense arguing with them, going back for it, we just resend it. So you just make sure you get that to us immediately. And you don't
Wonderful.
have to
All right.
I'm sorry.
Clear. Okay. No need to get the CPA involved. All right. Speaking of CPAs, why hasn't my CPA told me about this all these years? You kind of alluded to that, but
right.
You could elaborate.
Yeah, and they shouldn't. It, like I said, it's a specialty, and there's other companies out there that do this for clients. Again, I will reemphasize: just make sure you have a legitimate company that is doing what's in the best interest of you, not in the best interest of them on what their fee is. But most CPAs are not educated in this, nor should they be. It's no different than when I went to my internist and I needed knee surgery. She referred me to an orthopedic surgeon. This is exactly the same thing. This is what we do. We do it excellently. When we actually, even before, and I don't think I mentioned this, before we even send the final amendments to you, it goes through our legal department. And they review it to make sure that we have everything dotted and all of our T's crossed and all the paperwork to back up in case you would have an audit. Now, we don't think this is ever seen, I've never seen this trigger an audit, but that's not to say you wouldn't be audited for something. And they'll see the R&D and the IRS may have some questions. If that happens, just give me an email and tell me what the IRS needs and we'll address it and get it to them. And that has happened with one client.
Well, that's a good record. And you kind of anticipated a future question, which was, does this increase my chances of being audited?
Yeah, and that's honestly, when I first started doing this, that was one of the very first questions out of everybody's mouth, and understandably, because first of all, I'm telling you, you're going to get all this money that you've never heard of. Then I'm telling you, you don't have to pay taxes on it. Check again with your CPA. I am not a CPA. That immediately, am I going to be audited? Is this going to flag me? Okay. There's no reason for this to flag it, and I'll repeat again. We can't tell you won't be audited for whatever reason. What we will tell you is we will back up any of our work and get you the documentation if it is ever questioned at no cost to you. Hope that
very good. Absolutely. And I think you may have touched on this, but let's be clear. The question is, can I only do it for 1 year? And I know that you can go back, what is it, 3 years? And then every year after that.
Yes, we can go back. They allow us to go back 3 years. And then once we do the 3 years, we can look at it every year. And then I think I said this earlier, but just in case I missed it myself, if the next year we look and you don't qualify for whatever reason because you didn't pay enough taxes or whatever, that doesn't mean we stop there. We'll come back the next year. So as soon as you file, that's actually, here's a good point too, is one of the questions, and I don't know if somebody has asked this, maybe I'll head it off, is why can't you do this paperwork and I'll give it to my CPA and they can just send it into with my filing of my taxes? Can't do that. You have to file your taxes first. That has to go in first, and then we file this. It goes to 2 different departments. And again, most people have their CPA, they file electronically anyway. This can't be done electronically. It has to be done hard copy, which doesn't make any sense to me. It seems antiquated, but it is what it is. So that's the reason we can't give it to your CPA.
Okay. Next question is, what if I have a partner in my practice?
That's a good question. When they first started this program, before it was made into law, you could have a partner and they didn't have to apply for it. As long as you owned at least 25% of the business, that has changed. If you have a partner and you do it, all your partners have to do it also. And why wouldn't they want to, right? I mean, they're all going to get money back. I have a group of women doctors that I do and have done for quite some time. And there are, I think there's 7 of them now. All the partners.
I guess what I'm confused by, I think this is a great question, is if you're a partner in the same practice, is it double dipping if you both file claiming the same, not file, but if you both apply claiming the same expenses, the same investments in R&D, or do you have to just split it 50-50 if it's a 50-50 partnership?
No. They'll look at each one individually because it also, they'll look at how your CPA filed your income tax returns, because everybody is different. You may have kids, somebody else may not. They may have taken this deduction, the other one may not have. Those are all things they look at. So they'll look at it individually, but it has to be all done for if there's a partnership. And they'll
Well,
each,
and do the, so the only investments that they'll look at are in deductions that were included in a previous tax return?
that's part of it. But they'll also look at what did you do? Because if there's partners, now each one of those partners, I'll fill out an application with them. And I'll ask them those different questions. What do you do? Because a lot of partnerships like this group I was talking about, they also have employees that work just for them, or they may have a group of employees. And then there's a lot of intricate, and that's what I'm telling you, we have to go through the application to look at it. And then I turn it over to the CPAs that know what they're doing. I never give an opinion on things or say, no, this wouldn't count. I always say when we're filling out an application, let's fill it out as if we're talking to a 2-year-old. And you cannot give too much information.
That always is good advice. I think I know the answer to this one, but the question is, do I have to pay my CPA to do anything extra, I guess?
Right. No, you do not. Okay. You know, like I said, if you get letters from the IRS that has anything to do with R&D, you just send it over to me and I send it in and we take care of it. You don't even have to think about it again. We'll take care of it. Now, if there is something that they have a question on your tax filing for whatever reason that they didn't understand, but that's usually caught as we're going through the application part. I don't think I've ever had that after the fact. But no, your CPA does not have to get involved other than claiming your interest at the end of the year after you get your checks. Now, if you apply today and you don't get your checks till sometime next year, obviously that goes into 2022, not 2021 returns.
Mm-hmm. And then the question was asked if they have to pay taxes on the money, and I know the answer to that is not only do you not pay taxes, but you get paid plus interest, right?
Yeah, it just blows my mind. The first time I saw that, I thought this just cannot be true. This just is too good to be true. And why haven't I known about that all these years? I think I mentioned earlier, I thought I've started 3 companies in my life. Never heard of this. Never heard of this. So there were years that I went, and I can't go back. It's too late now. I did a presentation to the NABO organization, which is the National Association of Women Business Owners. And if you could have heard their collective sigh when they went, oh my gosh, why haven't we known about this? And that's how I feel. I want to get the word out as much as I can. If you know somebody that we can help, all you have to do, here's what it takes, an effort on your part. Shoot them an email, copy me on it, and just say, hey, I'm telling you, you need to spend 10-minute conversation with Kathy. Send it off, and I'll take it from there, and I'll keep you updated as to what the process is. I never share what that particular client gets back, but I'll say, yes, they went through the process and they are getting some credits back.
Yep. Ideally, they'll avail themselves of the process themselves first, so they can be an informed advocate. And next question is, well, what if you already answered? If you don't get any money back, then you get a full refund of any monies that you prepaid.
Yeah, and there's not a delay in that either. I want you to know, because I know there's a company, I believe they're in California, that does this. But if that happens, I think they have like a 60-day window before they send you your money back. Ours is within 10 days.
And somebody asked, why are you focusing on dentistry? And I guess, similar in vein is, how did you get introduced to it? Was it through your dentist? I don't think you shared that with me. Maybe you could share with us now.
Yeah, actually it was. When I first got into this, I think I told you that a friend of mine had the telecom company and the real estate, and it worked so well.
Oh, yes.
I did. And a week or 2 later, I believe that might have been longer because it's been so many years ago, I had to go to my dentist. And he was coming to me, and I just said, hey, give me a minute. Have you ever filed for R&D taxes? And he looked at me in a fog. He said, I've never even heard of it. And I said, well, we need to talk then. And so we set up a time because he was really busy. And I came down and we sat in his conference. I said, here's the deal. He goes, what? And why haven't I heard of this? And that particular dentist, which I will not give his name, but he got back $356,000. So he was
Wow.
thrilled and gave me a lot of referrals because he wanted to get the word out to his friends.
Are you able to share since you're not going to share who it is, just to give us an idea, do you know what his or her, I guess you said, annual production was, just to get an idea about what kind of percentages he's getting?
No, I'll tell you, you can't do that. And it doesn't make sense. You'd think, well, as a matter of fact, I had that question today from a client. Well, I do 4 million. What do you think I'll get back? I can't answer that. And I won't answer that.
Okay.
It's too many parameters and I don't know. So that's
Not
why
that simple. Okay, I got you.
It's not.
Yep, it's not like a tax bracket. Okay. Yeah, me too. Well, that was great. Again, very direct to the point, very clear. Really appreciate you taking the time to share it with us, Kathy. And let me just remind and share with you that in a few days you'll receive an email with instructions on how to get your CE credit. And now I'd like to invite you to mark your calendars for Thursday, January 20th. We'll be taking the holiday season off, so our next webcast will be roughly 2 months from now. It will be at the usual time, 6 p.m. Central, at which time my guest will be Dr. Todd Eldridge, whose presentation is entitled Cardiovascular Disease Prevention Myths, Grow Your Practice While Saving Lives. The largest gap in U.S. healthcare today is a gross underdiagnosis of heart disease. Atherosclerosis is responsible for more than 38% of deaths in women and nearly 33% of male mortality. And that is nearly 100% preventable. Because dentists see their patients nearly 5 times more often than do primary care providers, they represent a vital piece of the wellness puzzle. Identifying additional ways to contribute to overall patient wellness enhances the value dental offices provide their community. Attendees will learn about practical tools that will enhance their practice, as well as other tools which are a waste of time in identifying cardiovascular disease in their patients. Learn about one painless, non-invasive procedure which requires no disrobing, no additional radiation exposure, and can generate additional profit to your practice, all while saving lives. It all happens on Thursday, January 20th at 6 p.m. Central. Until then, this is Danny Bobrow thanking you for your ongoing commitment to practice perfection. Goodbye, everybody, and a happy holiday season to you all.
Thank you to all of you and have a safe and healthy holiday.
Thank you, Kathy.